of the little path leading to the porch, while the rush cart, coming up the next moment, stopped at the gate. Then four young maidens, dressed in white, and having baskets in their hands, advanced and scattered flowers along the path, after which ladders were reared against the sides of the rush cart, and the men, descending from their exalted position, bore the garlands to the church, preceded by the vicar and the two other divines, and followed by Robin Hood and his band, the morris dancers, and a troop of little children singing a hymn. The next step was to unfasten the bundles of rushes of which the cart was composed, and this was very quickly and skilfully performed, the utmost care being taken of the trinkets and valuables with which it was ornamented. These were gathered together in baskets and conveyed to the vestry, and there locked up. This done, the bundles of rushes were taken up by several old women, who strewed the aisles with them, and placed such as had been tied up as mats in the pews. At the same time, two casks of ale, set near the gate, and given for the occasion by the vicar, were broached, and their foaming contents freely distributed among the dancers and the thirsty crowd. Very merry were they, as may be supposed, in consequence, but their mirth was happily kept within due limits of decorum. When the rush cart was well nigh unladen, Richard Assheton entered the church, and, greatly pleased with the effect of the flowery garlands with which the various pews were decorated, said as much to the vicar, who smilingly replied that he was glad to find he approved of the practice, even though it might savour of superstition. And as the good doctor walked away, being called forth, the young man almost unconsciously turned into the chapel on the north aisle. Here he stood for a few moments, gazing round the church, wrapped in pleasing meditation, in which many objects, somewhat foreign to the place and time, passed through his mind, when, chancing to look down, he saw a small funeral wreath, of mingled yew and cypress, lying at his feet, and a slight tremor passed over his frame, as he found he was standing on the ill-omened grave of Abbot Paslew. Before he could ask himself by whom this sad garland had been so deposited, Nicholas Assheton came up to him, and with a look of great uneasiness, cried "Come away instantly, Dick. Do you know where you are standing?" "On the grave of the last Abbot of Whalley," replied Richard, smiling. "Have you forgotten the common saying," cried Nicholas, "that the Assheton who stands on that unlucky grave shall die within the year? Come away at once." "It is too late," replied Richard. "I have incurred the fate, if such a fate be attached to the tomb, and as my moving away will not preserve me, so my tarrying here cannot injure me further. But I have no fear." "You have more courage than I possess," rejoined Nicholas. "I would not set foot on that accursed stone for half the county. Its malign influence on our house has been proved too often. The first to experience the fatal destiny were Richard Assheton and John Braddyll, the purchasers of the abbey. Both met here together on the anniversary of the abbot's execution, some 40 years after its occurrence, it is true, and when they were both pretty well stricken in years. And within that year, namely 1578, both died, and were buried in the vault on the opposite side of the church, not many paces from their old enemy. The last instance was my poor brother Richard, who, being incredulous as you are, was resolved to brave the destiny, and stationed himself upon the tomb during divine service. But he, too, died within the appointed time." "He was bewitched to death, at least so it is affirmed," said Richard Assheton, with a smile; "but I believe in one evil influence just as much as in the other." "It matters not how the destiny be accomplished, so it came to pass," rejoined the squire, turning away. "Heaven shield you from it!" "Stay," said Richard, picking up the wreath. "Who think you can have placed this funeral garland on the abbot's grave?" "I cannot guess," cried Nicholas, staring at it in amazement. "An enemy of ours, most likely. It is neither customary nor lawful in our Protestant country so to ornament graves. Put it down, Dick." "I shall not displace it, certainly," replied Richard, laying it down again; "but I as little think it has been placed here by a hostile hand, as I do that harm will ensue to me from standing here. To relieve your anxiety, however, I will come forth," he added, stepping into the aisle. "Why should an enemy deposit a garland on the abbot's tomb, since it was by mere chance that it hath met my eyes?" "Mere chance!" cried Nicholas. "Everything is mere chance with you philosophers. There is more than chance in it. My mind misgives me strangely. That terrible old Abbot Paslew is as troublesome to us in death as he was during life to our predecessor, Richard Assheton. Not content with making his tombstone a weapon of destruction to us, he pays the abbey itself an occasional visit, and his appearance always betides some disaster to the family. I have never seen him myself, and I trust I never shall, but other people have, and have been nigh scared out of their senses by the apparition." "Idle tales the invention of overheated brains," rejoined Richard. "Trust me, the abbot's rest will not be broken till the day when all shall rise from their tombs; though if ever the dead, supposing such a thing possible, could be justified in injuring and affrighting the living, it might be in his case, since he mainly owed his destruction to our ancestor. On the same principle, it has been held that the church lands are unlucky to their lay possessors. But see how this superstitious notion has been disproved in our own family, to whom Whalley Abbey and its domains have brought wealth, power, and worldly happiness." "There is something in the notion, nevertheless," replied Nicholas; "and though our case may, I hope, continue an exception to the rule, most grantees of ecclesiastical houses have found them a curse, and the time may come when the abbess may prove so to our descendants. But without discussing the point, there is one instance in which the malignant influence of the vindictive abbot has undoubtedly extended long after his death. You have heard, I suppose, that he pronounced a dreadful anathema on the child of a man who had the reputation of being a wizard, and who afterwards acted as his executioner. I know not the whole particulars of the dark story, but I know that Paslew fixed a curse upon the child, declaring it should become a witch and the mother of witches, and the prediction has been verified. Nigh 80 years have flown by since then, and the infant still lives, a fearful and mischievous witch, and all her family are similarly fated. All are witches." "I never heard the story before," said Richard, somewhat thoughtfully, "but I guess to whom you allude. Mother Demdike of Pendle Forest, and her family." "Precisely," rejoined Nicholas. "They are a brood of witches." "In that case, Alizon Device must be a witch," cried Richard; "and I think you will hardly venture upon such an assertion after what you have seen of her to day. If she be a witch, I would there were many such, as fair and gentle. And see you not how easily the matter is explained? Give a dog an ill name, and hang him, a proverb with which you are familiar enough. So with Mother Demdike. Whether really uttered or not, the abbot's curse upon her and her issue has been bruited abroad, and hence she is made a witch, and her children are supposed to inherit the infamous taint. So it is with you, Tomb. It is said to be dangerous to our family, and dangerous no doubt it is to those who believe in the saying, which luckily I do not. The prophecy works its own fulfilment. The absurdity and injustice of yielding to the opinion are manifest. No wrong can have been done the abbot by Mother Demdike, any more than by her children, and yet they are to be punished for the misdeeds of their predecessor." "Ay, as you and I, who are of the third and fourth generation, may be punished for the sins of our fathers," rejoined Nicholas. "You have Scripture against you, Dick. The only thing I see in favour of your argument is the instance you allege of Alizon. She does not look like a witch, certainly, but there is no saying she may only be the more dangerous for her rare beauty and apparent innocence." "I would answer for her truth with my life," cried Richard, quickly. "It is impossible to look at her countenance, in which candour and purity shine forth, and doubt her goodness." "She has scattered her spells over you, Dick, that's certain," rejoined Nicholas, laughing. "But to be serious, Alizon, I admit, is an exception to the rest of the family, but that only strengthens the general rule. Did you ever remark the strange look they all have, save the fair maid in question, have about the eyes?" Richard answered in the negative. "It is very singular, and I wonder you have not noticed it," pursued Nicholas; "but the question of reputed witchcraft in Mother Demdike has some chance of being speedily settled, for Master Potts, the little London lawyer, who goes with us to Pendle Forest to morrow, is about to have her arrested and examined before a magistrate." "Indeed!" exclaimed Richard. "This must be prevented." "Why so?" exclaimed Nicholas, in surprise. "Because the prejudice